Does this feel similar to World War II?
You could hide during that war, say in a cellar, and now nowhere. This is a war you can't hide from.
What's going on?
I don't know, mate, like, it's a lot of shelling.
Buildings ripped apart, destroyed, burnt out tanks, cars on their side.
And we've come further towards the Russian position now.
There was some pretty intense fighting here very recently.
So we've driven probably like half an hour or so out of Kharkiv, and then we saw huge artillery in the field just now.
And over here, as you can see, we've got a really busted up tank. Now we know this one's Russian. You can see the infamous Z sign that it's got painted on the side of it right there.
So we can hear in the distance artillery consistently, right?
We're pretty close to the front lines now, and like there were battles here taking place just days or weeks ago.
Tom, what exactly just happened? Because that was absolutely wild.
Yeah, so basically the Ukrainians just fired like a massive artillery battery pretty much right next to us. We could see about 10-15 rockets just go over our heads. Now we've been told to stay right here because they expect that a Russian counter-artillery
We were waiting to get clearance to move from place to place because there is artillery fire like right next to us. All the military have to, you know, be obviously communicating, make sure accidents don't happen. So here we are in this farm which was struck by an attack. I think this was occupied by the Russians as well. They're also doing humanitarian work here.
Yeah, so I think what we heard is that some of the people here are like cooking food for the soldiers and for the people who are in the affected villages. Yeah,
it's just amazing that the farmers are still going about their day. Like we see them cleaning up and doing jobs and things, right? Artillery is going over their heads, you know. So as you can see behind me, some of the cows are still here. A lot of the animals were killed during the strike. We just heard from the main farmer here, and she was explaining that the Russians would come in and shoot at her for fun. And then when they missed and they drove past her again, they said, "We'll get you tomorrow." That's just what she was saying, so what can you say to that?
At this stage, we went closer to the Russian positions. Things started to get intense quite quickly. We were driving at extremely high speeds down this highway, 150 kilometers an hour. There were rockets sticking out of the road in parts, driving around destroyed bridges. There were huge Ukrainian artillery and military vehicles. Obviously, I couldn't film them, not to give away their positions, but there was an extremely heavy military presence. There were military aircraft going overhead, and we were just driving down this road, dodging holes from rocket strikes. I was told the reason that we had to drive so quickly that we could easily be targeted by the Russians driving here. So the faster we move, the better. And whenever we parked, it's best to park under trees.
We've driven down the motorway a bit, past heaps of huge military equipment, huge artillery vehicles, and we've come to these destroyed apartment blocks here down the street. This whole trip today has been led by 2 Ukrainian military women. We've driven for quite a bit further, going like super fast, like 150 k's an hour, and we've come further towards the Russian position now. I just saw a lady in the second window from the top to the very left. A lady just came and looked out and then walked back into her house. So I don't know if she's living in there or what's going on there, but this is a recently destroyed building and there's still a woman just in there.
They do evacuate people. Like they evacuate some people and they take them to Kharkiv, but there are just a lot of people who will just refuse to leave no matter what.
Just arrived in this village and this looks quite fresh. So most of the houses that we've been seeing, you can still kind of make out that they're houses, right? But this one, not so much. So this is the crater here.
This is the crater of the bomb, yeah, so one single bomb has absolutely devastated all the buildings around us.
So we've made it back to the city center of Kharkiv. Now I don't really have words to describe, you know, obviously what we just saw, the access that we just got, it was because we were rolling with some pretty heavy names in press, and so we got that really exclusive press access. It was really beyond anything I could ever imagine, being that close to the front lines. Still explosions going on, you can hear them in the background. Never would have expected to be that close, and when that artillery was flying over our heads. Bad news, like less than an hour ago, in the zoo here in Kharkiv, there's been an attack, and a young 15-year-old teenage boy was saving and evacuating animals, trying to get them to a safer place, and he was trying to save the animals, and that's just happening, you know, real time right now. Very dangerous place, more bombing right now. But we just went and had some food, a beautiful little cafe and things, and it's so surreal to see life go on while we're in amongst all this. It's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, but of course it makes sense. People have to go on with their lives, right? But it's very strange.
So fortunately, everything went smoothly with the train ride. Stopped off in Kiev for a little bit, but ultimately left the country and returned back to Hungary. It was a 40-hour train ride. This trip was by far the most extreme trip of my life. I think this episode speaks to that quite clearly. The suffering and the pain that I've seen on this trip is almost impossible for me to even try to put into words. So a huge thanks to Tom for basically keeping me alive. That's the end of the Ukraine series. It was the most exhausting trip of my life by far, being in such high-risk areas, but like I've mentioned, I'm not living there. I can go there, I can come back to a safe house, to a safe country. What I experienced is nothing in comparison. My heart is with the innocent people of Ukraine who are just living their lives, and one day they wake up and they're being bombarded. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.